saying she was contacted to represent someone in the sale of said video, which she declined. But regarding the contents of it, she told News Nation,
there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of, and to contact the person who was in the video to see if they were interested in purchasing the video before it became a public knowledge.
I've heard
Mr. Combs was in the tape, and this other person is, I would venture to say, more high profile than Mr. Combs.
with her then adding that she has seen stills of the video and it is pornographic in nature, but it also doesn't look like this unnamed person was aware they were being filmed, right? And all of this just fueling more and more speculation about who witnessed or enabled Diddy's behavior. You know, if any of these cases keep moving forward, it does seem like we could find out at some point down the line. But as far as where things stand for Diddy at this current moment, he is currently being held in the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York, but his lawyers filed an appeal this week seeking his release, or with them aiming to overturn a previous ruling that denied him bail, but we're gonna have to wait to see what happens. But then we gotta talk about last night's vice presidential debate, an event described as unusually normal, which it was in the scope of the last 8 years. Like Vance and Walls, who, by the way, fantastic makeup artists. They both had a little morning glow glam on. They were cordial and friendly with one another. They actively said they agreed with one another on certain things. They basically never attacked one another personally and barely even politically, instead reserving their shots for Trump and Harris. And I'll be honest, I was kind of shocked when I saw the post-debate polls. Because like I said yesterday, before the debate happened, like Walls has a reputation for not being a strong debater. He was definitely a bit wobbly, faltering at times, stumbling over his words, with easily his weakest moment being about him responding about his time in China, because Walls has previously said that he was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989, but recent reports have shown that he actually didn't travel there until later that summer. And so when he was asked about this discrepancy, he just gave this weird word salad, where he starts talking about his experiences growing up and joining the National Guard at 17, and then saying,
my first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that.
With him then going on to outline some of the work that he's done for his community, saying they know who he is and they repeatedly elected him as a congressman and governor, and then adding,
I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China.
With Walls then continuing on a bit longer, criticizing Trump's attitudes towards China, and again, emphasizing his commitment to his community, to which one of the moderators was like, my guy, what? Can you answer the question? To which he then said,
all I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Right, and for the most part, Walls' fumbles were especially notable because they came in such sharp contrast to Vance. Right, he's a lawyer by trade. He came off as very smooth, articulate, and prepared. But this, as you had critics saying, while his debating may have seemed strong and polished on the surface level, if you dug even a fraction of an inch deeper, his performance was very dishonest. Or with many critics accusing Vance of trying to remake himself as this even-keeled, moderate Republican. Others also noting that throughout the debate, Vance made numerous false and misleading claims about a wide range of issues, including the environment, inflation, and immigration, among other topics. With him seemingly using both tactics when talking about abortion, trying to paint himself as someone who has moderate and flexible views, and then falsely claiming he didn't vocalize certain hardline views in the past.
In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level.
That exact same 15-week federal ban on abortions that the moderator is referencing there, he supported it. And while that isn't a total ban on abortion, it would overturn the laws of many liberal states that allow for longer periods. And in addition to that, as recently as 2022, this man said, quote, I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally. He has also voiced support for national ban bans to stop women from traveling across state lines to get abortions, as well as banning the mailing of abortion-related materials. That was just one of the many false claims Vance made, with in fact his continued false claims even forcing the moderators to make clarifications more than once, even though CBS, which hosted the debate, said that its moderators would not be aggressively fact-checking the candidates. Though, I will say a big thing there is that the network did say beforehand that it reserved the right to fact-check seriously false statements. And so that's exactly what ended up happening when the debate turned to Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, which of course, as we've talked about on the show, Vance has been spreading lies about for weeks now.
Just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank you,
Margaret. The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
Now here, just to be very clear, basically everything he said there is wrong, right? Even his claim that CBS had told both candidates that it would totally avoid fact-checking, that is wrong, right? And the other thing that he's talking about there is CBP One, which is an app that was actually launched under Trump, but expanded under Biden. And while Vance is correct that the app is used by migrants to start the parole process and schedule appointments, Haitians arrive in America through the TPS program, which is a totally separate thing. Also, the US has a separate humanitarian parole program for citizens of Haiti and 3 other countries that doesn't involve the app. But that also wasn't the only time CBS had to issue a clarification to something Vance said. Also, just like with Trump in the last presidential debate, Vance also failed to answer many of the questions asked of him, even after being pressed by the moderators. This including during a discussion on climate change, where the moderators noted that Trump has called climate change a hoax and asked if Vance agreed, with Vance refusing to answer the question directly, prompting this response from moderator Norah O'Donnell.
The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate.
But arguably the most significant moment of the whole night, and I think it's part of the reason the post-debate polling was so close, with it being Walz's best moment, and that is when Vance refused to say whether or not Trump won the 2020 election. But he kept dodging it, trying to deflect it into some social media censorship thing, claiming that that is actually the single biggest threat to democracy. But I mean, that moment was so bad for Vance, the Harris-Walz campaign turned it into an ad already.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
That is a damning non-answer. America, I think you've got a really clear choice of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Right, and on the stage in that moment, Walz segued into this powerful moment.
Look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? So, America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Now, with all that said, obviously, we're just touching on key moments. If you want to watch last night's debate, if you didn't see it, I'm going to link to it down below so you can watch everything for yourself, or you are always your own best judge. But yeah, as far as what others thought, like I said, it was a pretty even split. Post-debate polls from CNN and CBS News showing pretty much a tie. CNN's poll saying 51% of viewers said Vance won. CBS's poll said Vance won by 1%, with 17% declaring it a tie. Also, both men's favorability went up. Walz's from 46% to 59%, Vance's from 30% to 41%. Politico's snap poll said it was a tie. There were also several undecided panels that the networks had, though rightly or wrongly, I never believe those. And the results were also all over the place. 6 of 7 CNN's undecideds were still undecided. 5 of 6 for NBC News said that Walz won the debate. And then over at the Washington Post, it was a pretty even split, barely any movement. But with all that said, who knows if any of this moves the needle in any way? way, which is maybe for the best, because of course, remember, the only poll that matters happens on election day. So if you haven't yet, go to vote.org, go to vote.gov. Make sure you're registered to vote. If you're not registered, go register. You can even look into early voting, come up with a voter plan, and get your friends and family involved. Because remember, I always say it, you may not fuck with politics, but politics will fuck with you. Vote for what you want to see in this world. But then, taking a quick break from the news, it is true what flight attendants say. You need to put your oxygen mask on first in order to be there for others. And